You will never, ever, ever look at an escalator again and not think of me, which is great because it's a metaphor for successful people
Yeah.
do things that most people aren't willing to do. Like we just exited a business, like we're done, like we need to chill for a bit. We've been working, and he said, "No, no, no. This is what you were born to do." We went from zero back to eight figures in 5 years.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey, and today, I have anticipated this show for a long time. My guest, Rory Vaden, the author of Take the Stairs, Procrastinate on Purpose, and potentially a children's book that hasn't been announced yet. This is groundbreaking. Welcome to the show, Rory.
Thanks, Remington. Good to be here, man.
I'm pumped to talk to you about a lot of things. The first question I have for you is, I'm jealous because I know that as a growth junkie myself, someone who speaks on stages about growth, I'm jealous because I know everyone who's ever heard you speak or read your books gets to a place where they're at a stair or an escalator situation and they think to themselves, what would Rory do? That's so awesome. I mean, you've got millions of people that think that.
Yeah, I mean, it's if anyone has ever read my first book, Take the Stairs, or seen me do that speech, which is like the speech that I built my career on, it's true. You will never, ever, ever look at an escalator again and not think of me, which is great because it's a metaphor for successful people
Yeah.
do things that most people aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
And and I think a big part of why that book sells, I mean, like, hopefully the book is good. I think it's pretty good, but is a lot of times because they actually physically take the stairs when they're with their family and friends, and people are like, "What are you doing?" And they'll be like, "Oh, it's like this book I read, Take the Stairs." And it like totally spurs the conversation. So
Well, the thing is now you're not allowed to take escalators. If you get caught, it's like our health administration just got caught eating McDonald's. It's been on blast for 24 hours now.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I'll made it. I'll know I've made it if the paparazzi is following me around, like trying to snap pictures of me on the escalator.
That's right.
For sure.
Well, Rory, you're known for brand builders now. This is the business that you are currently in.
Mhm.
Um, your byline on your Instagram is become wealthy and well known. Now, you were in another business, sold that business when you had written your other book. And what's interesting is in that time, you also went viral for your TED Talk, How to Multiply Your Time, which essentially, as I understand it, is the content for Procrastinate on Purpose, which is your second book.
Yeah.
So, but you sold all that and then completely started over with brand builders. How did that happen?
Yeah, so basically my wife and I started a company back in 2006 that we grew from scratch over 12 years to 200 people. We had like 5,000 clients. It was an eight-figure business that was doing sales training and sales coaching. And then we met as business partners, actually. So we weren't dating when we started the company. We had a mutual friend and we started the business together, and then we fell in love like a year after we started, and then we started dating, and then like 3 years later we got married,
Oh,
and
wow.
then built the business together. And
Did you say fell in love and then started dating?
yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess yeah. I mean, it was
I mean, it's
we
possible if you fall in love in the workplace and then you're like, let's date.
well, here's what's interesting about it was the first night where we were both single, because when we started the company, we had both had significant others. And so everything between us was completely platonic. Like we weren't even really like friends. It was just so professional and like robotic because we were building a company. And then she broke up with her boyfriend. I broke up with my girlfriend. And then it was like a few weeks had gone by. And then the whole company went to like this Valentine's Day fundraiser. And we
Yeah.
had both just gotten single. And it was just like, we tell people it was love at second sight. Uh, because it was like the clouds parted, and it was like from that night on, we've been together ever since. But um it really didn't, it wasn't love at
Harry
first
Met
sight.
Sally. Harry Met Sally, your own personal movie.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So then
So
you build that business and then you fall in love, you guys get married and then decide to sell.
yeah, so what actually happened was we had the equivalent of like investors. And as often happens with a company that starts from scratch and grows really big, really fast, like we had philosophical differences about the direction that we thought the company should go. And we walked into, what was going to be a routine budget meeting, and AJ got fired, is what happened.
Oh, wow.
And two other female executives also got fired at the same time. And I thought that these three women were awesome. And so I resigned and we left. So fortunately, we had like a built in exit kind of clause, mechanism. So we were able to sell our portion of the business. But we went to zero, like our income went to zero. All of my social media, all of our email database, our customers, our technology, like everything, the curriculum, everything we had been working 80 hours a week for 12 years was gone, like overnight, went to zero. And interestingly enough, we got a call like to the day from someone who had been a friend of mine. This guy, when Take the Stairs came out, I was 29 years old, and we hit the New York Times, and I was on this small little podcast called The School of Greatness with Lewis Howes.
Oh, wow.
And it was
Small.
this newer podcast, and this guy was like really cool. And I was like, I really like this guy. We're the same age. And so I said, hey, you should write a book one day. And he's like, I've been thinking about it. And I said, well, let me tell you everything that we just did. And here's how it worked. And we became friends because I was just kind of casually helping him. And he hit the New York Times a few years later with his first book. And then we lost touch. And Lewis called me a few years after that, like after we as we exited this other company, and he said, man, I know we haven't talked in a while, and I'm not really sure why, but I feel like I'm supposed to call you. My
Oh, wow.
business has grown. My podcast is up to 30 million downloads, and we're generating millions of dollars, but I'm not keeping very much, and I'm spread thin, and I'm stressed, and I have so many opportunities coming at me. I don't know what to say no to, and I just don't feel like I have like a great strategy. And he said, is there any chance that you would be willing to like lend your brain to be a part of me helping establish my business, like the strategy for the business? And it was like, sure enough, we're wide open.
Yeah.
So Lewis comes to the house. We spent 2 days together, and he said, this is the most powerful business experience that I've ever had. This is what your new business is. And we said, no, well, no, this is not our new business. We don't plan on being like, we just exited a business. Like, we're done. Like, we need to chill for a bit. We've been working. And he said, no, 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 this is what you were born to do. And we were like, Lewis, you don't understand. Like, we don't have a team. We don't have an audience. Like, our social media following, the email list, it's all gone. Like, everything, all of our speaking clients, is like, it's all gone. And he said, that's okay. I have a big audience, and I'm going to have you on my podcast, and we're going to tell the whole world that this is what you guys do. And we're going to walk them through everything you did for me. And so we did that. July of 2018, I went on Lewis's show. We had nobody on our team really. Like, we had just had a few people that were starting to come over, and we had a single janky landing page that I built that said request a free call. So we went on, we did the interview, offered people a free call, and we had over 1,000 people request free calls.
Wow.
And we since have worked with Ed Milet and Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, and Amy Porterfield and Jasmine Starr and Jim Quick and Trent Shelton and Natalie Ellis and like John Maxwell, all people who become clients. And
Clients
then,
specifically for building their own personal brand.
yeah, build and monetize a personal brand. And, you know, 7 years ago, that was like something that only speakers and authors did. But then it's like recently it's an explosion where everybody, is realizing they have to build their personal brand. They have to grow their following. They have to grow their reputation. They have to grow their reach. And it just happens to be the only thing we've spent our whole life doing. And
Yeah.
we've been working behind the scenes to help some of the biggest personal brands in the world. And so we rebuilt Brand Builders Group. We went from zero back to 8 figures in 5 years. We've got 45 employees. We have about 1,000, like 870 active clients in our one-on-one coaching program now, and we help mission-driven messengers change the world and become more wealthy and well-known in the process.
It's pretty impressive, and it definitely does seem like that big break of being on that show and getting the 1,000 leads to start off is what propelled you into this. But what I know to be true of the few times that we've spoken, Rory, is you would have figured it out anyway. That just kind of, again, propelled you. But one of the questions I had for you is specifically because you only work with personal brands. Because I remember talking about this, like, you kind of turn away bigger brands. You don't coach the Fortune 500 companies or small business, even small businesses. Like, you're specifically people, right?
That's right. Yeah, just faces, just individuals. Now we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, we work with a lot of corporate executives, but it's only that person's face. It's not the whole company. It's not like the brand guidelines of like the logo. Like we don't do any companies. It's 100%. And we're not a personal branding firm that does like your logos and your fonts. We're a personal brand strategy firm. So we help people with their market positioning, their monetization strategy. We help them create content. We have helped 56 different authors become New York Times or USA Today or Wall Street Journal bestselling authors.
Hmm.
We've had 6 of our clients that we've helped create TED Talks that have gone viral. We have like 12 clients who have grown their personal brand revenue more than $1 million a year. So it's
So
and
that's
it's
what you specialize as people, not the businesses. Did you make that distinction on purpose, or did you just realize that's what you're good at? Is there a reason you don't want to work with businesses?
Yeah. So both, because our flagship mantra is that if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results.
Hmm.
Like that is our core overarching strategy. Like one of our most deeply held beliefs is that if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. And a lot of what we do for the clients we work with is we help them create focus, but we help them make strategic decisions about what to focus on in what sequence that will build, a skyscraper of a personal brand that the whole world takes notice of. And so part of it is also because, a company is complicated. There's a lot of decision makers. There's a lot of people with an opinion. There's a
True.
marketing, whatever. But an individual person, and this is part of like for us, this is also a ministry. Like we go, we're not really in a scenario where we're doing this for money. We're doing this because we feel like each individual human has an opportunity to make a big impact in the world with their story and their background to a specific group of people. And we feel called and capable to help them clarify what that what that mission is, to figure out who they're meant to serve.
Okay, let me pause you right there. So I was gonna ask you who all should be interested in building their personal brand. I think the answer would be everyone is capable or everyone should. But the real question is why? Because if you don't actually answer that, we're just building a big brand to become Instagram famous and do nothing with it. I think from talking to you, I've always said that success gives you a platform to impact people in a way that truly matters. And that I think, I don't know, when you first meet with somebody, are there people that you will turn away because they don't line up with your mission statement, or do you care what their mission statement?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
how do you define that?
there's a lot of clients that we like a lot of prospects or people who want to work with us. If we don't think that what they're doing is genuinely making the world a better place, we won't lend our talents to support their mission.
Okay.
So I think so that's part of it, right? Again, it's just like, a ministry for us is going like we're trying to we call it 1,000 messengers. Our vision from the beginning was to find 1,000 people who really care about making a difference in the world. So like our audience loves making money and they like money, but money is subservient to the mission. They want
Mm,
revenue, but revenue is subservient to reputation. They want income, but income is legitimately, like, not in an altruistic sense, it's legitimately subservient to making impact. And they go, the driving force is to make the world a better place. We also want to make income and revenue and money as part of that, but it's not the leading factor by which decisions are made. And so it makes a very unique audience. Like our community is very, very unique in that way.
So what's a mistake people often make when trying to build their personal brand that no one talks about? I imagine that when they come to you, like within 5 minutes, you're like, all right, I know how I can help that person. I can see it right now. What's a common mistake?
They're doing too many different things. Like they literally go, they hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk about lots of topics. So they're like, ooh, I'll talk about lots of topics. And then they watch The Rock, who has, multiple streams of income, and he's like selling tequila and t-shirts and facial products. And they're like, ooh, I want multiple streams of income. And then, they go watch, whoever on social media, and it's like, ooh, I got to be on TikTok and Instagram and, Twitter X and Meta Facebook and YouTube and podcasts. So they're like trying to do all of those things. And then they have too many audiences. And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, some of the content I make is because grandma's watching, and some are my friends from high school, and some are my current prospects, and some are like my actual customers, and some are my colleagues, and some are people I go to church with. And like they bounce off the wall, and they don't realize the reason they bounce off the wall is because they're trying to do too many different things. And part of how we've been, at least hopefully somewhat significant or influential in helping so many big personal brands, is we help them figure out what's the one audience you're going to talk to. What is the one problem you're going to solve? How do you solve that problem in one sentence? What is the one revenue stream that is going to matter in your life above all others? And instead of hitting all over on the wall, we think of it as like, there's two groups of people. There's those living in obscurity, and then there's those in notoriety, like those people who are unknown and the people who are well known. And there's this huge wall between them. We call it Sheehan's wall. And
Mhm.
if you're like hitting on all the different parts of the wall, nothing ever happens. But if you hit the same spot again and again and again and again, that's how, eventually you crack through the wall. And then once you break through the wall, you can just rip the whole thing and the whole thing comes falling down. But if you don't have that precision first, you're just hosed. You're just part of the noise getting
Man,
consumed among the crowd.
you know what happens too with those kinds of content influencers is like they they will start and have a mission in mind because I've seen this and I almost fell prey to this is starting to talk about whatever the trend is before you actually have an informed decision on what you even believe. So
Yeah.
now you're just pumping out content and talking because you're low on content. So you're taking stances on things, and then 2 weeks later realizing that you don't even believe it wasn't calculated. You're talking about things you don't understand, and that's a great way to lose an audience or go nowhere. So
Mhm.
you help them define exactly what that thing is and help them refine it. I love that.
That's the first thing we do. Yeah, the very first thing we do is that. Then once they're clear on who they serve, what problem they solve, what's the one revenue stream above all others, then we multiply it and go, all
Yeah.
right, now here's how to go out to the market with creating original IP and speaking. But like most of our clients are not influencers, and they're not YouTubers and podcasters per se. They're service providers. They're real estate agents. They're mortgage brokers. They're chiropractors. They're CPAs, and they're not all like launching courses. We
Hmm.
know a lot about launching courses. We know a lot about selling books. We know a lot about doing membership sites. We know a lot about that stuff. But most of our clients are entrepreneurs because they're using their personal brand to drive leads to the thing they're already doing, which is really smart. Every time you scroll on social, there's going to be someone with an ad trying to sell you like the way to make money is to do a 3-day challenge, or you should launch webinars, or you should become a podcaster. But the
Yeah.
truth is, the fastest path to cash is to use your personal brand to drive leads to the thing you're already doing, and just have more leads and warmer leads show up who are already further down the buying line ready to buy from you by the time they get there.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that is what I was picturing and what I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this are picturing is like, unless you want to become Instagram famous or TikTok famous and do a bunch of content, Rory's probably not giving you things that you need. But I follow you on the socials and I saw a video of you talking about the power of, I can't remember what it was. Maybe you'll remember basically the power of one relationship and
Mm,
uh, one able-bodied person that follows you and why that's more powerful than 1,000 views on a video. Do you remember the concept? I just saw this
yeah.
a couple weeks ago. So what were you saying there?
Well, yeah. So the punchline is that everyone is so focused on the width of their reach that they overlook the depth of their impact.
Well, like,
The illustration is that people go, what's the fastest way to double my business? And everyone thinks, ooh, I need to get millions of followers. Like if I want to double my business, I need to go like viral and I need to like go really big and wide, or like I need to be on TV. And the truth is, we have clients on Good Morning America. I said, well, just this past Saturday, we had another. I mean, every couple weeks, our clients are on the Today Show and Fox and Friends. I mean, our clients are on the biggest podcast in the world. We see exactly how much revenue it drives, and it's shockingly less than what most people realize. I mean, we had a client who had 1 million views on her post about her book. 1 million people viewed it. It resulted in 400 sales. 1 million views, sold 400 books. Like
why?
because people don't buy that way because there's no trust. Trust must take place before there's a transaction, which points to the fastest way to grow your business is not to get millions of followers. The fastest way to double your business is to get every single customer that you have right now to refer one customer.
Eh,
If every customer you have right now refers one customer, you double the business. But nobody is focused on that. Everyone is chasing vanity metrics and algorithms and viral trends, like trying to do that, going, no, serve the person in front of you. Take care of the people that are right in front of your face. And if you serve the people in front of you in a deeper way, they will introduce you to more people. It doesn't mean that social media is bad or stupid or a waste of time. It's tremendously valuable if you do it the right way. But
yeah.
it's the same thing. This is about trust. You must build trust. And it's not about followers, it's about trust. That's how transactions are done.
Okay. So we know where we're going. I 100% subscribe to everything you just said. I'm excited to re-listen to this podcast and take notes myself. I'm jacked about that. Let's back up even further and answer this question for me. If you had to rebuild your brand from scratch with no connections or resources, because the truth of the matter is, you already were really good at a lot of things when you created brand builders and Lewis said, hey, you should do this. Again, I firmly believe you would have created it anyway. And I also believe you probably had some connections. Let's erase those. No connections. And I'm listening to this show today and I'm thinking, this sounds great. I want to get started. Where do you even start if you have none of these things?
Yeah. So the two ways to start a business from scratch, the two mechanisms that will give you customers the fastest. First of all, it's not social media, it's not YouTube, it's not podcasts, it's not ads. It is referrals and presentations.
Okay.
Referrals and presentations. Referrals from people you know and presenting to an audience, giving them instruction. A presentation is the fastest way to take someone from a complete stranger to a lifelong fan, assuming it's what we call a world-class presentation. So one of our trainings is called world-class presentation craft. But I can be in front of a stage of some people who have never heard me before, and 45 minutes later, lifelong fan. If you structure it properly and you're a real expert. But you said, how would you do it if you have no connections? That's not really a viable thing. The truth is, all of us have connections. But very few people lean into them properly. So one of our other big mantras is build relationships before you need them. Build relationships before you need them. So yes, in part of our, chapter 2 of our life, Lewis Howes was the initial relationship that opened the door. But we can use any of our relationships to open doors and to build something from scratch. And people go, well, what if when we say referrals, they all think, well, I have to have customers. What if I don't have customers? You don't have to have customers to get referrals. You just have to know humans, right?
Yeah.
So if I could start selling real estate today and get referrals today. How? I have no customers. It's through humans that know me in real life. It's
Yeah.
about trust. So I have to go start with who trusts me, and then I get referrals from them, not strangers on the internet. And this is where everyone screws up. Everyone thinks that the path to glory is selling stuff to strangers on the internet. It is not. The path
You
to
know why?
glory
It's
is to
because we
people who
don't.
know you.
That's true. I love what you said because we're more connected than we think. We have more connections. You didn't accept the premise of my question.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a good answer. That's such a good answer. I'm glad you answered that way because it's true. We all do have connections. So I think about my personal. So if you're a realtor, you experience this. I experienced this when I started in knife sales. You are told to start from your sphere, and so the ones that made it because I was at Cutco for 10 years. Most kids make it 2 weeks, and they struggle with calling on their friends and family because they don't want to bug them with this thing. I think it's the same thing with real estate. You get in and you think, "Hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of Zillow leads. I'm going to advertise on socials, and I'd rather sell to people who don't know me. This is embarrassing calling my friends and family." How I imagine you tackle that when you're coaching people is like getting over a fear like that. What's your response to that when people are like not wanting to engage with their sphere?
So simple. So simple. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Don't sell to your friends and family.
Okay.
Don't sell to your friends and family. Ask your friends and family for referrals.
Okay. I like
That's
that.
the key. Is like because direct sales and financial services, and of course, I went door to door when I was in college, and we have some of that a connection, right? It's not wrong to sell to your friends and family, but many people struggle to do it because now it's like I thought we were friends, and now you're like trying to sell me the thing, which makes it weird when I call you to see if you want to go play basketball on Saturday, right? Like it creates some weirdness. So it's a whole conversation about how to get over that, which we could talk about. But the biggest thing is to go, you don't have to do that. Don't don't try to sell to them. What you really want is help.
Yeah.
You need referrals more than you need customers. You need people to talk to. So it's like use that as a source of referrals and to go just like they would help you watch your kids or help you move or they would help you find a job. If they're your real friends, they'll help introduce you and connect you to people. And that's all you really need to do.
That's true, and I think that oftentimes, if you are really struggling to ask for a referral or sell yourself with a business, you probably don't have enough belief in the thing that you're selling. Because I
Sure.
think about all the things that I sell in my life that I get paid $0 on. Fresca, I love Fresca. I tell everybody to drink more Fresca. I think it's phenomenal. It's Coke's best product. I don't get paid for that. Hopefully, I can get an endorsement someday. That'd be great to get endorsed by Fresca. But if I get a new pair of shoes, if I watch a new show, you don't have to pay me. I just get excited about it and I tell people about it. For whatever reason, we're not passionate enough in that thing. Maybe we're in the wrong industry.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you friends share good things with each other. We share our favorite movies, our favorite restaurants, our favorite places to travel. It
Yeah.
is not weird or abnormal or awkward to tell people about things that you love. But part of what makes it offer is when you are getting paid to do it. And now there introduces this like ulterior motive, which is like a conflict of interest. And so the easiest thing to do is to sidestep it and go, yeah, ask them for referrals. And if they go, well, what is it you're doing? You tell them, you'll sell some of them by accident, like by default of just
Right.
trying to communicate. But don't go in with the intention to sell to the person you know. Go with the intention to be introduced to other people. And the other thing with both people, right, is in this is where our content marketing strategy comes into play, is with whether it's online or offline, and we do both, which is another thing that's very unique. Most people are either teaching online or they're like old school only teaching offline. We teach both. And by the way, we define a personal brand as simply the digitization of your reputation. So you can't say who needs a personal brand. That's like saying who needs a reputation. Like
Mhm.
it's the exact same concept.
Have one, whether you like it or
Yeah,
not.
you have one whether you like it or not. Like you may not value it, but like you have one.
Yeah.
Or you have none, which is, even worse. So but when you create content for people, what's so powerful about digital is that you can use one of the 3 E's, and if you use these 3 E's of content strategy, people will show up and raise their hand ready to buy. You don't even have to sell to them. They'll come to you. So the 3 E's are: you need to be entertaining, encouraging, or educational.
Mm.
Entertaining, encouraging, or educational. Every single thing you post should be one of those three things: entertaining, encouraging, or educational. Now, here again is where there's a conflict of how people think versus what actually makes money. If you're trying to go viral, let me save you time. We know a lot about going viral. We have lots of clients who go viral, and it's a big part of their strategy. I can tell you that entertaining content is much more likely to go viral. When people have an emotional experience where they cry or they laugh or they get pissed off, that is going to be the most likely content to go viral. It is also going to be the least likely piece of content to cause someone to buy something from you.
Yeah.
What causes someone to buy something is educational content.
So wait, so do you have to balance that with the flow of your own personal content? Or because I know some people that are just like all educational with none of the viral stuff, and then so they lose some eyeballs because people are like, "Ah, I'm kind of bored of this guy." Like, do you have to balance that?
Yeah, well, you can or you cannot, right? So, unfortunately for me, I'm not super entertaining naturally, other than when I'm on stage doing keynotes, and I'm pretty funny there. But I'm not the life of the party off stage.
I am surprised about that. Not to get too off topic, but hey, it's a podcast and whatever. Your humor, because I watched your TED Talk and it's full of humor. It made me laugh out loud. And I'm that guy that watches the entire show and at the end says, that was funny. I laughed out loud. Like there was a part, this is, I believe, before you had kids. And the
Uh-huh.
punchline of your message up until that point was, I realized in that it's this big emotional draw. And all of a sudden you're like, in that moment, I realized 2 things. One, I'm not ready for kids. And I died. I thought that was, and now since then you've actually had kids. So this is a
Yeah,
minute ago.
it
Uh,
was.
but I noticed you don't use humor in your books as much as I would think, because on stage you're very funny. On your books, you're very straight to the point, and it's to each their own. But what was the decision there?
Well, I think, look, on stage. So, one of the things that I studied, the more people get to know me, the more they'll realize that I'm just a nerd with a microphone. Like I am a massive data geek, a massive, researcher, and I learned the psychology of laughter. In fact, it's one of the things that we teach in our program is the 9 psychological triggers that cause a human to laugh. And laughs are predictable if you know these laws and these formulas. And so when I have the time to craft them,
Yeah.
I'm really funny.
Yeah.
When I'm just going through the day-to-day life, the real Rory is just a giant nerd. And so it's like not super entertaining. So, on social, most of my content I focus on educational, but that's the thing too, is like, one of our clients asked us this not too long ago, which I really appreciated. She said, I don't understand, Rory, why all of these huge personal brands hire you to help them when they have like 100 times more followers than you do. And I was like, well, I really appreciate the honesty of the question.
That's interesting.
And I said, but think about this. We make much more revenue than most of them, if not all of them.
Yeah.
And I say, which one's more impressive? Someone who makes a small amount of revenue from a huge number of followers, or someone who makes a huge amount of revenue from a small amount of followers?
Mhm.
And which one do you think is more likely for you to be able to replicate? If you have to get millions of followers for something to work, that's a pretty uphill battle. That's not going to work for a high percentage of people. But
Sure.
if you can learn to make money, a lot of money from a small number of people, now all of a sudden that's
Mm.
super duplicatable. And that's the other thing, right? Is like it's a way of thinking. When I say monetization strategies, one of the things that we teach, we literally have to teach people to think differently about money. We have to teach them how to change the way that they think, like the deep versus wide. Here's another great example, right? Is when for some reason, if you go like, okay, how am I going to double my company? People think, their mind goes to, I need hundreds or thousands of customers. The truth is, for most of us, you could double or quadruple your income with a dozen or 2 dozen of the perfect clients.
Yeah.
Like you don't need the masses, but
Mhm.
everyone's like, it's crazy to me. Like we live in this world where like everyone is chasing. I mean, I don't want to call it the wrong thing, but it's like they say they want money, but like they're
They're
doing
chasing it
all
the
the
wrong
things
way.
that are not the things that make money.
Yeah. Yeah. They're chasing, in this case, the right thing the wrong way.
Yeah. So let me give you, I'll give you, I'll give you, I'll share for free one of our monetization strategies. It's right on point with this.
I love it.
Okay. So we call this fractal math. And it's a little bit of math, but I'll keep it simple. But get your math brain on for a second.
Okay. I'm ready.
Here's how fractal math works. Fractal math says 10% of your customers will invest at a level 10 times more what they've already invested.
Mm.
So if you have 1,000 customers who bought a $30 product, that's 30,000 in revenue. 1,000 people each gave you $30, 30,000 in revenue. If you go, how are you going to double that business? What most people do is they go, oh, I need another 1,000 customers. But anyone who knows anything about business will tell you that the most expensive type of customer is a new customer
Mhm.
because you have to do new exposure, new advertising, and a new trust cycle. Anyone who knows anything about business will tell you that the most profitable type of customer is a repeat customer. And this is what fractal math is rooted in. So it says 10% of your audience. So if you had, or 10% of your customers. So if you had 1,000 customers, that means 100 of the 1,000 will invest 10 times what they already have. So 1,000 people give you $30. That means 100 of those people would give you $300. You have doubled the revenue with no new customer acquisition cost. And it continues to go. So if 100 people would give you $300, 10 people would give you $3,000. You doubled it again. And if 10 people would give you $3,000, that means you have one person in your database right now who would give you $30,000. So
Now,
you
here's my question.
quadrupled.
I'm following everything you're saying so far. What if I don't have the thing that costs that money? What if I don't have the thing that costs $300? What if all I have is the book and I sell 1,000 copies of the book? I don't have coaching. Do I have to create that thing, or are we saying that that person will buy more copies of that book or will refer more people? So you don't have to create something. It's just that person is more valuable in your database.
It could be, yeah, it could be both. So there's 3 options there. One is you create something for them to go, that may be the right answer. It may not be. I'm not saying this is always the right answer. I'm saying this is the thing no one ever thinks about.
Yeah.
So and that's why we say we're a personal brand strategy firm. And this is also why we work with people one-on-one, is it's like the answer is different for each person at different times in their life based on their team and their goals and all the things.
They
But
need to know this exists so that they can create the answer.
right, the decision might be to create it. The other decision might be that I don't need to create anything. It's more of a referral source. But to use your book example, this is part of how, like we helped Ed Milet pre-sell 117,000 copies of his book. And this is one of the ways that we did it, because you go, all he had was a book. Well, on average, like one of the things that we do is we've helped several people hit the New York Times, not by buying their way on the list. We don't allow authors to do that. We teach them how to do the hard work necessary to sell a lot of books, right? And so you go, well, they're let's just take the number 10,000. Okay? If you say, how are we going to sell 10,000 books? Our mind goes to the masses. We go, okay, I need to get 10,000 people to buy a book. Yes, that's true. We should come up with a strategy, which we do. We come up with a strategy, go, how can we get 10,000 people to each buy one book? But the other thing we think about is, what strategy could we create that would get 100 of those 10,000 people to each buy 100 copies? Because 100 times 100 is also 10,000. And I can tell you from having done this for years, it's way easier to find 100 people who will buy 100 copies than it is to get 10,000 people to buy one. Way
Yeah.
easier. But if you don't think like that and you don't have a strategy for it, and then it's not on the radar, you miss it. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's the iceberg analogy where it's like everyone sees what's on the surface and nobody sees what's really going on underneath. And that's strategy. And it's not the thing that people talk about. That's what we do. We work behind the scenes. We work underneath the surface.
And that's what I like about it, Rory, is like you have all this knowledge of these stats that support the actions that you take. And so starting with the fact that 10%, of 1,000 will buy 100 times more. If you start there, and maybe that will inspire you to take actions as ways that you wouldn't have if you didn't know that stat. And that's why I like your content, is because once you have the knowledge of the way people think, do business, and act and spend dollars, now it's like, okay, if all I had was the book, cool, let's apply this. But also, maybe I should start coaching or classes or webinars, or maybe I should get out there in front of people, like something that you haven't thought about before because the data wasn't there to support it.
Yeah, perhaps. And if you're, let's use realtors though, because you go, I don't think every realtor should suddenly launch a coaching business. I think that could be a terrible idea. Like I think a lot of realtors struggle from diluted focus, and that's why they get diluted results. The way I would think about it as a realtor is to go, rather than buying 10,000 like Zillow leads, what if I just every month hosted a meetup for my 100 clients?
Mhm.
And you go, that costs money. Well, yeah, it costs money, but you're going to add value to them, to their life. What happens if you keep pouring value into them and you're encouraging them, you're educating them, and you're entertaining them? What's going to happen when they see you all the time? Those 100 people are likely going to give you 100 referrals much faster than the 10,000 cold calls to the Zillow leads.
Mhm.
Now, we love both, right? I don't mind cold calling. We knocked on doors, we do emails, we run ads, we have clients that do billboards. Like we've seen them all. They can all mix and match, but the fastest path is the warmest one, which is through relationships, which people just we all want to sell and go on to the next person rather than serve the people you have in a deeper way.
Yeah. I love it. Roy, we're out of time, unfortunately, because I could go all day with this. But the cool thing is, we're going to see you soon on the stage. We announced last week RP Elevate is a
Come
thing.
on.
You are going to be a featured speaker on stage, I believe on September 30th of 2025.
Come on.
This is just a sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about. Do you already have are you going to collect a bunch of stories along the way and change it, or is your keynote ready to go? Is it how far out?
It will definitely change between
Oh, right.
now and then. Yeah.
Life will happen between now and then. Well, Roy, this has been phenomenal. I appreciate you being on the show, and like I said, I'm going to listen to it back and take a bunch of notes. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with?
Well, thanks, Remington. No, I would just say come to RPL, man. Like let you buy a ticket and be there, and let's meet in person.
Yeah, rplelevate.com or realproducerselevate.com. That was Rory Vaden. Take the stairs, procrastinate on purpose. If you want to influence who is on the show or what we talk about, email us at podcast@realproducersmag.com and send us people if they want to launch a Real Producers franchise in their territory. We'll see you next time.